2 years after the great victory over the Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Jake Morrison received a message that changed everything once again. He was sitting in his office aboard the USS Defiant, reviewing patrol reports from the outer colonies when Commander Rick Hayes burst through the door with excitement written all over his face. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately," Rick said, holding out a datapad with shaking hands. Jake took the device and read the message twice before looking up. "Is this confirmed?" "3 independent sources, sir. Long-range sensors, deep space monitoring stations, and a merchant ship that barely escaped to tell the story." Jake stood up and walked to the window of his quarters, looking out at the stars. Somewhere beyond human space, a new threat was approaching. But this time, it wasn't the Zephyrians. The message described ships unlike anything in known databases. Massive vessels that moved without visible engines and seemed to bend space around them. They had destroyed 2 human outposts in the far colonies without warning or communication. No survivors had been found. "Have we tried to make contact?" Jake asked. Admiral Williams sent first contact teams to 3 different locations. None of them came back. Jake thought about the implications. Humanity had barely finished rebuilding from the Zephyrian War. The colonies were still recovering, the fleet was still being reorganized, and now a new enemy had appeared. "What do we know about their technology?" Rick consulted his notes. The surviving merchant captain described weapons that seemed to erase matter completely. No explosions, no debris. Ships just disappeared when the beams touched them. And their ships? Organic-looking, like living creatures made of metal. They changed shape during flight and seemed to communicate with each other without radio signals. Jake nodded slowly. "Get me a secure channel to Earth Command. And tell Dr. Park I need to see her in the science lab immediately." An hour later, Jake found Dr. Park surrounded by holographic displays showing the limited data they had collected about the new aliens. She had aged well in the past 2 years, but the stress of constant research showed in the lines around her eyes. "What do you think, Lisa?" Jake asked, using her first name as he always did when they were working on serious problems. "They're not like the Zephyrians at all," Dr. Park replied, manipulating the holographic images. "The Zephyrians used energy. Shields and plasma weapons. These new aliens seem to use some kind of matter displacement technology. Meaning, instead of blocking or deflecting attacks, they simply make the attacks not exist. It's like they're rewriting the laws of physics in small areas around their ships." Jake studied the grainy images of the alien vessels. They looked like enormous jellyfish swimming through space, their hulls pulsing with internal light. "Can our harmonic weapons affect them?" Dr. Park shook her head. "I don't think so. Harmonic resonance works by disrupting energy fields. These aliens don't seem to use energy fields the way we understand them. So we're back to square one." "Maybe not," Dr. Park said, bringing up a new display. "I've been studying the sensor, readings from the attacks. There's something strange about the way their ships move." Jake looked at the movement patterns she highlighted. The alien ships seemed to flow through space like liquid, but there were small irregularities in their motion. "What am I looking at?" "Gravitational distortions. These ships are incredibly heavy, much heavier than they should be based on their apparent size. I think they might be using artificial gravity as both propulsion and defense. And that helps us how?" Dr. Park smiled for the first time since the conversation began. "Because we have something that affects gravity, the architect ship." Jake's eyes widened. They had left the ancient vessel in the Kepler asteroid field after downloading all its data. The ship itself had been too large and damaged to move, but it was still there with its mysterious technology intact. "You think the architects fought these aliens too?" "I think the architects fought everyone. They seem to have been the galaxy's peacekeepers for thousands of years. Their ship probably contains weapons designed for many different types of enemies." Jake made his decision quickly. "Rick, set course for the Kepler system. Best possible. Speed. Sir, shouldn't we report to Fleet Command first? We'll send a message on the way. Right now, we might be humanity's only hope of understanding this new threat." The journey to Kepler took 6 days. During that time, more reports arrived of alien attacks. The creatures were moving systematically through the outer colonies, destroying everything in their path. They showed no interest in communication or negotiation. When the Defiant reached the asteroid field, they found the architect's ship exactly as they had left it. The ancient vessel hung in space like a sleeping giant, its crystalline sections still glowing faintly with internal power. Dr. Park led a larger exploration team this time, including Amy Carter and several xenoarchaeology specialists who had joined the crew. They had learned much about architect technology over the past 2 years, and their translation programs were more advanced. Deep in the ship's databanks, they found what they were looking for: records of a war fought 10,000 years ago against an enemy the architects called the Devourers. The descriptions match the new aliens perfectly. "They're not from this galaxy," Dr. Park explained as the team studied the ancient records. The architects described them as invaders from beyond the galactic rim. They consume matter to fuel their technology. "Consume matter how?" Jake asked. "By converting it directly into energy. That's why their weapons make things disappear. They're not destroying matter, they're harvesting it." Amy Carter was studying technical diagrams of architect weapons designed specifically to fight the Devourers. "Look at this. The architects built gravity bombs, weapons that create artificial black holes." "Can we build those?" Jake asked. "Not with current human technology, but maybe we don't need to." Amy pointed to another diagram. "These look like gravity field generators, devices that can create areas of altered space-time." Dr. Park's eyes lit up with understanding. "If we can generate gravitational fields, we might be able to disrupt their matter displacement technology, force them to exist in normal space where conventional weapons can affect them." The team worked for 3 days, downloading every piece of relevant data from the architect computers. The technology was incredibly advanced, but the basic principles were understandable. The architects had learned to manipulate gravity the way humans manipulated electricity. When they returned to the Defiant, Jake called a meeting of his senior staff. The bridge was crowded as everyone gathered to hear Dr. Park's report. "The good news is that the architects defeated the Devourers," she began. "The bad news is that it took them 300 years and cost them their entire civilization." "What's the plan?" Chief Brooks asked. He had been promoted to Fleet Master Chief but still served aboard the Defiant. "We modify our ships again," Amy said. "But this time, instead of harmonic weapons, we install gravity field generators, create areas where the Devourers can't use. They're matter displacement defenses." "How long will it take?" Jake asked. "For one ship? Maybe 2 weeks. For the entire harmonic fleet? 3 months minimum?" Jake thought about the reports coming in from the colonies. They didn't have 3 months. "We start with the Defiant," he decided. "Test the technology in combat, then expand to the rest of the fleet if it works." "Sir," Rick said carefully, "are you suggesting we take one cargo hauler against an enemy that's destroyed dozens of human ships?" Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They had done the impossible before. The ship everyone called useless had ended one war. Maybe it could start winning another. "That's exactly what I'm suggesting," Jake said. "Dr. Park, how quickly can you design the gravity generators? Give me 48 hours. Amy, how long to install them? 1 week if we work around the clock." Jake nodded. "Then we have 9 days to save humanity. Again." As the crew dispersed to begin their work, Jake remained on the bridge with Rick. His old friend and executive officer looked worried. "Jake, what if this doesn't work? What if we're wrong about the gravity fields?" Jake thought about the question seriously. They were betting everything on ancient alien technology and theoretical physics. If they failed, the Defiant would be destroyed and humanity would lose its best chance of understanding the new enemy. "Then we'll be wrong together," Jake said finally. "But Rick, look at what we've accomplished. 2 years ago, we were the crew nobody wanted on the ship nobody needed. Now we're the first line of defense for the entire human race. Because we keep volunteering for impossible jobs. Because impossible jobs are the only ones worth doing. Rick smiled despite his concerns. Well, when you put it that way, how can I argue? As the USS Defiant began its transformation once again, Jake looked out at the stars and thought about the future. Somewhere out there, an ancient enemy was returning to destroy everything humans had built. But humanity had advantages now that it hadn't possessed before. They had learned to value unconventional thinking. They had discovered the power of combining old technology with new ideas. Most importantly, they had proven that being different, being unwanted, being considered useless could be the greatest strength of all. The ship that had ended the Admiral Kate Williams appeared on the main screen of the USS Defiant exactly 53 minutes after Jake's transmission. Her face showed a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. Behind her, Jake could see the busy command center of Earth's Orbital Defense Station. Captain Morrison, I've reviewed your battle recordings 3 times. I still can't believe what I'm seeing. It's real, Admiral, Jake replied. The harmonic weapon system works exactly as we reported. Dr. Park's technical analysis is being studied by our best scientists right now. They say it's brilliant, revolutionary. Why didn't we think of this before? Jake looked at Dr. Park, who was standing beside his chair. Because nobody listened to Dr. Park when she tried to tell them. Admiral Williams nodded slowly. I owe you an apology, Doctor. Your theories about shield frequency disruption were correct. Thank you, Admiral, Dr. Park said quietly. Now, about implementation, the Admiral continued. We need to retrofit the entire fleet with this technology immediately. How quickly can you get back to Earth? Jake exchanged glances with his crew. Admiral, there's a problem with that plan. The harmonic system only works on ships like the Defiant. What do you mean? Amy Carter stepped forward. Modern ships are too fragile, Admiral. The harmonic frequencies create enormous stress on the hull. Our old titanium steel composite can handle it, but newer materials can't. Also, Dr. Park added, the advanced computer systems on new ships try to optimize the frequency patterns automatically. That breaks the precise timing we need. The weapon requires simple, direct control. Admiral Williams looked frustrated. Are you telling me that only old cargo ships can use this weapon? That's exactly what we're telling you, Jake said. But Admiral, there are 23 decommissioned ships just like the Defiant sitting in Earth's orbital yards. Ships that were scheduled for scrapping. The Admiral's eyes widened as she understood. You want to build a fleet of obsolete cargo haulers? I want to build a fleet of warships that can defeat the Zephyrians, Jake corrected. Admiral Williams was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Jake could hear voices in the background as her staff discussed the implications. Captain, the Zephyrian main fleet will reach the outer colonies in 3 weeks. Can your modified cargo ships be ready by then? Give us the ships and the crews, and we'll make them ready, Jake promised. What kind of crews? Jake smiled. The same kind you gave me, Admiral. People who don't fit in with the regular fleet. Engineers who ask too many questions. Scientists with crazy theories. Soldiers who think for themselves. Misfits and troublemakers, Admiral Williams said. The best kind of people for an impossible job. 2 weeks later, Jake stood on the observation deck of Earth's main orbital station, watching the strangest fleet in human history prepare for battle. 24 cargo haulers floated in formation, their hulls bristling with hastily installed harmonic weapon arrays. Each ship had been modified using the Defiant's specifications. Amy Carter had trained dozens of engineers in the retrofit process. Dr. Park had personally programmed the harmonic sequences into every ship's computer. The work had proceeded around the clock, with thousands of people working to prepare humanity's last hope. The crews were exactly what Jake had requested. Every misfit, troublemaker, and free thinker that Fleet Command could find had been assigned to the new ships. People who had been passed over for promotion, disciplined for questioning orders, or simply considered too difficult to work with. Captain Lisa Garcia commanded the USS Persistence, a former mining ship. Her crew included an engineer who had been court-martialed for unauthorized modifications and a weapons officer who had been demoted for insubordination. Commander Paul Wright led the USS Resilience with a team of former research scientists who had been kicked out of their laboratories for asking inconvenient questions. Chief Engineer Sandra Kim had designed improvements to the harmonic system that made it 30% more efficient. Every ship had a similar story. The fleet that nobody wanted was crewed by people that nobody wanted. But Jake had learned that being unwanted could be a powerful advantage. The Zephyrian main fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 200 ships, including massive battleships, that dwarfed anything in the human arsenal. They moved in perfect formation toward Earth, confident in their technological superiority. Jake watched them approach from the bridge of the Defiant. His ship had been designated as the Fleet Flagship, which still seemed impossible to him. 6 months ago, he had been given command of a garbage scow as punishment. Now he was leading humanity's most important battle. All ships report ready. Commander Rick Hayes announced from the communication station. Dr. Park, are the harmonic systems synchronized? All 24 ships are linked through the quantum communication network, Dr. Park replied. We can coordinate our frequency patterns across the entire fleet. Jake opened a channel to all ships. This is Admiral Morrison to all vessels. His promotion had come through that morning, along with authority to command the new Harmonic Defense Division. 6 months ago, we were all considered failures. Our ships were too old, our ideas were too strange, and our methods were too unconventional. Today, we're going to show the galaxy that being different is exactly what makes us strong. Jake paused, looking around his bridge at the crew that had become his family. The Zephyrians think they're fighting the same humans they've been defeating for months. They're wrong. They're fighting something new, something they've never seen before. All ships, engage harmonic weapon systems. Begin frequency pattern Omega 7. The sound that filled space around Earth was like the voice of a mechanical god. 24 ships generated perfectly coordinated harmonic frequencies that created interference patterns across millions of cubic kilometers. The mathematics were so complex that only Dr. Park fully understood them, but the results were simple to see. Zephyrian shields began failing across their entire fleet. The enemy commanders reacted with confusion and panic. Their ships had never been vulnerable before. Some tried to retreat, others attempted to charge through the harmonic field, and a few simply stopped moving as their crews tried to understand what was happening. All ships weapons free, Jake ordered. Target the battleships first. The cargo haulers opened fire with every weapon they could carry. Ancient pulse cannons, missile launchers, and even some improvised rail guns filled space with projectiles. None of the weapons were particularly advanced, but they didn't need to be. Without shields, the Zephyrian ships were helpless. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Zephyrian main fleet had been completely destroyed. Not a single enemy ship escaped to carry word of the new human weapons. Jake stood on his bridge, looking out at the debris field that had once been humanity's greatest threat. His crew was exhausted, but victorious. Around them, the other cargo. Ships of the Harmonic Fleet were already beginning cleanup operations. Admiral Williams is requesting a direct communication, Tony Rodriguez announced. Put her through. Admiral Williams appeared on screen, but this time she was smiling. Admiral Morrison, I believe congratulations are in order. The Zephyrian threat has been eliminated. Thank you, Admiral, but the credit belongs to my crews. All of them. I've been thinking about what you said before the battle, about being different making us strong. Jake nodded. What about it? I want to expand the Harmonic Defense Division, build more modified ships, train more unconventional crews. I think we've learned something important about the value of thinking differently. Jake looked around his bridge again. Chief Brooks was arguing with Amy Carter about proper maintenance procedures. Dr. Park was already working on improvements to the harmonic system. Kevin Lee was downloading intelligence data from the destroyed enemy ships. They were still misfits and troublemakers. but they were also the people who had saved humanity. "I think that's an excellent idea, Admiral," Jake said. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood in the Smithsonian Space Museum looking at a holographic display that told the story of the USS Defiant. Visitors walked past, reading about the ship, that everyone called useless until it ended the war. The real Defiant was still in service, leading patrols in the outer colonies with her original crew. They had refused all transfers to newer ships, preferring to stay together on the vessel that had become their home. Dr. Park had won the Nobel Prize in Physics and been offered positions at a dozen universities. She had turned them all down to continue working on harmonic technology aboard the Defiant. Amy Carter was now chief engineer of the entire harmonic fleet, responsible for training thousands of technicians in the art of retrofitting impossible weapons onto obsolete ships. Chief Brooks had been promoted to Master Chief and given command of the fleet's training program. He was still grumpy, but Jake had noticed he smiled more often these days. Jake himself wore the uniform of a fleet admiral, but he still considered himself the captain of a cargo hauler crewed by misfits. Some things were too important to change, as he walked through the museum. Jake stopped at a plaque near the exit. It contained a quote from the first battle report he had filed after discovering the Architect ship. "Sometimes the most powerful weapon is the one nobody expects, wielded by people everyone underestimates." The bridge of the USS Defiant buzzed with controlled panic. Red warning lights flashed as the crew prepared for their first real combat. Jake Morrison stood in the center of it all, trying to look calm while his heart pounded in his chest. "How long until they reach us?" Jake asked. Kevin Lee checked his sensors. 23 minutes at their current speed." "Are they scanning us?" "Yes, sir. They're running deep scans on our ship. Probably trying to figure out what we're doing here," Jake thought quickly. The Zephyrians would see an old human cargo ship, alone in an empty system. They might be curious, but they wouldn't consider the Defiant a threat. That could be their advantage. "Amy, how long do you need to prepare the weapon system?" "Give me 10 minutes, Amy called from the engineering station. "I need to run final checks on all the frequency generators." "Dr. Park, are the harmonic patterns ready?" "Yes, sir. All sequences are loaded into the computer. I just need your order to begin the targeting program." Jake nodded and turned to his weapons officer. "Helen, what do we have for conventional weapons?" Gunner's mate Helen Davis checked her screens. 2 pulse cannons and a missile launcher. Standard cargo ship defensive weapons. Nothing that could scratch a Zephyrian cruiser." "Unless their shields are down," Jake said. "Unless their shields are down," Helen agreed. The next 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. The crew worked frantically to prepare their untested weapon while 3 enemy warships approached. Jake watched the tactical display as the Zephyrian ships grew closer. They were moving in a standard patrol formation, confident and unhurried. "Captain, they're trying to contact us," Tony Rodriguez reported from the communications station. "Put them through." The main screen flickered and showed the face of a Zephyrian commander. The alien had pale blue skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, the universal translator made its voice sound cold and mechanical. "Human vessel, you are in restricted space. State your purpose here." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Morrison of the merchant ship Defiant. We're conducting geological surveys of the asteroid field." The Zephyrian commander's eyes narrowed. "You will submit to boarding and inspection. Lower your shields and prepare to receive our party." "Of course," Jake said, trying to sound cooperative. "We're transmitting our survey data now." He cut the communication and turned to his crew. "How much time did that buy us?" "Maybe 5 minutes," Kevin said. "They're slowing down but still approaching." "Amy, status report." "All systems ready, Captain. Frequency generators are online and standing by." Dr. Park looked up from her station. "Harmonic patterns are locked and loaded. I've programmed 3 different attack sequences based on the Architect data." Jake studied the tactical display. The three Zephyrian cruisers were spreading out, probably planning to surround the Defiant before boarding. It was a standard procedure, but it would put them exactly where Jake wanted them. "Chief Brooks, is the crew ready?" "All stations manned and ready, sir. Damage control teams are standing by." Jake took a deep breath. Everything they had worked for came down to the next few minutes. If the harmonic weapon failed, they would all die. If it worked, they might change the course of the war. Amy, shut down all non-essential systems. Redirect full power to the weapon array. The lights on the bridge dimmed to emergency levels. The artificial gravity fluctuated as power was diverted. The air recycling system went quiet, leaving only the hum of the frequency generators. "Power at maximum," Amy reported. "We have maybe 45 minutes of air at current consumption." "That's all we need," Jake said. "Kevin, range to the nearest cruiser?" 12,000 kilometers and closing. Jake waited. The harmonic weapon had never been tested in combat. They didn't know its effective range or how long it would take to collapse enemy shields. Everything was guesswork, based on thousand-year-old alien data. 10,000 kilometers, Kevin announced. 8,000 kilometers. Jake's hands were sweating inside his gloves. Too early, and they might miss. Too late, and the enemy would destroy them before the shields failed. 6,000 kilometers. "Dr. Park, begin harmonic sequence." "Initiating harmonic attack pattern," Dr. Park said, her fingers flying over her. "Controls." The sound that filled the ship was unlike anything they had experienced during testing. The frequency generators were running at full power, creating vibrations that seemed to shake the very atoms of the ship. The metal walls hummed with resonant energy. "Pattern stable," Dr. Park reported. "All frequencies locked on target." On the main screen, they could see the lead Zephyrian cruiser. Its shields glowed with a faint blue light as they absorbed the harmonic assault. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the shield flickered. "It's working!" Helen shouted from the weapon station. "Their shields are fluctuating!" The Zephyrian cruiser began firing its plasma weapons, but the bolts of energy were weak and unfocused. The harmonic interference was disrupting their targeting systems as well as their shields. "Shields collapsing on the lead ship," Kevin reported. "I'm reading complete defensive failure." "Helen, target their engines and fire everything we have." The Defiant's pulse cannons were ancient compared to modern weapons, but they were solid and reliable. 2 streams of energy bolts struck the Zephyrian cruiser's unprotected hull. The alien ship shuddered under the impact. "Direct hits on their engine section," Helen reported. "They're losing power." But the other 2 Zephyrian ships were closing, fast. Their commanders had realized something was wrong and were moving to attack positions. "Dr. Park, can you target multiple ships at once?" "Working on it," she replied, sweat beading on her forehead. "The architect data shows patterns for engaging multiple targets. Trying sequence 7 alpha. The harmonic tone changed, becoming more complex as additional frequencies joined the attack. Jake could feel the vibrations in his bones as the ship's hull resonated with energy. "Second target's shields are weakening," Kevin announced. "Third ship is trying to retreat. Don't. Let them get away," Jake ordered. "If even one ship escapes, they'll warn the fleet about our weapon." Amy pushed the power systems beyond their design limits. Warning lights flashed as energy conduits overloaded. Sparks flew from control panels as the ship channeled more electricity than it was built to handle. "Shield collapse on Ship 2, Kevin called out. "Ship 3 is turning to run." Helen targeted the second cruiser and fired. Without shields, the Zephyrian vessel was helpless against even primitive human weapons. Explosions rippled along its hull as the pulse cannon fire found critical systems. The third Zephyrian ship was accelerating away from the battle, but it was too late. The harmonic weapon had a longer range than they expected. Dr. Park adjusted the frequency pattern to focus all power on the retreating vessel. "Got them," she said with satisfaction. "All 3 ships have lost their shields." Jake watched as Helen systematically destroyed the defenseless Zephyrian vessels. It felt strange to win so easily against ships that had dominated every previous battle. The enemy commanders probably died wondering what had happened to their superior technology. When the last enemy ship exploded, the bridge erupted in cheers. The crew hugged each other and shouted with joy. They had done the impossible. A cargo hauler had defeated 3 Zephyrian cruisers. "Amy, power down the weapon system and restore life support," Jake ordered. As normal lighting returned to the bridge, Jake looked around at his crew. They were exhausted, sweaty, and covered in grease and electrical burns. They were also the first humans to win a stand-up fight against the Zephyrians. "Dr. Park, did we record everything?" "Every frequency, every power level, every timing sequence," she confirmed. "We have a complete record of the battle," Jake nodded. "Tony, open a channel to Fleet Command. Priority Alpha Encryption." "Channel open, sir. This is Captain Morrison aboard the USS Defiant. We have successfully engaged and destroyed 3 Zephyrian cruisers using a new harmonic weapon system, transmitting full battle data and technical specifications." There was a long pause before the reply came. "Defiant, please repeat your last transmission. Did you say you destroyed 3 enemy cruisers?" "That's correct, Fleet Command. 3 Zephyrian cruisers, completely destroyed. We are transmitting proof of our victory and the technical data for replicating our weapon system." Another pause. "Defiant, maintain your position. Admiral Williams will contact you directly within the hour." Jake cut the transmission and looked. Around the bridge, his crew was grinning despite their exhaustion. They had proven that the ship everyone called useless could fight and win. "What now, Captain?" Amy asked. Jake thought about the war raging across human space. He thought about the Zephyrian fleet advancing on Earth. And he thought about the 23 decommissioned cargo ships currently sitting in orbital junkyards waiting to be scrapped. "Now we teach the rest of the fleet how to build these weapons," Jake said, "and then we end this war." The USS Defiant became a ship full of noise and activity. For the first time since leaving Earth, every crew member had something important to do. Amy Carter barely slept as she worked on modifying the hull cleaning systems. Dr. Park spent 18 hours a day studying the architect data, trying to understand the complex mathematics behind harmonic resonance. Jake Morrison found himself running between the engine room and the science lab, checking on progress and trying to keep everyone focused. The pressure was enormous. Every day that passed was another day closer to the Zephyrian fleet reaching Earth. In the engine room, Amy had torn apart 3 of the ship's sonic hull cleaners. The devices were simple in design, but perfect for what they needed to do. Each cleaner contained powerful speakers that could generate sound waves strong enough to shake loose space debris. With modifications, they could produce much more complex frequencies. "The problem is power," Amy explained to Jake during one of his visits. She was covered in grease and had dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep. "The hull cleaners were designed to run for a few minutes at a time. We need them to work continuously during combat." "Can we give them more power?" Jake asked. "We can try, but if we push them too hard, they'll burn out. Or worse, they could overload and damage the ship's hull." Specialist Ben Wright, one of Amy's assistants, looked up from his workstation. "What if we rotate them? Use one system while the others cool down?" "That could work," Amy said, thinking it over. "But the frequency patterns need to be constant. Any gaps could let the enemy shields reset." Mary Johnson, another engineer, suggested connecting all the systems together. "If we link them through the ship's computer, we could have seamless transitions between devices." Amy's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant. We'd need to rewrite the control software, but it's possible." Jake left them to their work and went to check on Dr. Park in the science lab. She had covered every wall with papers showing mathematical equations and frequency charts. Her computer screens displayed complex wave patterns that looked like electronic music. "How's the research going?" Jake asked. Dr. Park pushed her glasses up her nose and rubbed her tired eyes. "It's incredibly sophisticated. The architects didn't just use one frequency, they used dozens of different sound waves, all perfectly timed to work together." Like a symphony? Exactly like a symphony. Each frequency targets a different aspect of the Zephyrian shield technology. Some disrupt the energy flow, others interfere with the shield generators, and still others prevent the system from repairing itself. Jake studied the wave patterns on her screen. They looked beautiful in their complexity, like mathematical art. Can we recreate these patterns? I think so, but it requires perfect timing. If any of the frequencies are off by even a few milliseconds, the whole system fails. Communications Officer Tony Rodriguez had been helping Dr. Park with the technical aspects of sound generation. He had experience with audio equipment from his previous job on a passenger ship. The good news is that our old computers are actually better for this, Tony explained. The new ships have advanced processors that try to optimize everything automatically. Our simple systems will do exactly what we tell them to do, nothing more. Dr. Park nodded. We need precision, not intelligence. The architect patterns are like a recipe. Follow the instructions exactly and it works. Try to improve on it and it fails. Jake was beginning to understand why the Defiant might be the perfect ship for this mission. All of their outdated equipment was actually an advantage. Modern ships were too smart, too complex, and too fragile. The work continued around the clock. Chief Brooks coordinated the technical teams while keeping the ship running. He had divided the crew into 3 shifts so that someone was always working on the modifications. Petty Officer Kevin Lee helped with the computer programming. His hacking skills turned out to be perfect for rewriting the hull cleaner control systems. Gunner's mate Helen Davis worked on integrating the new weapons with the ship's existing systems. Everyone contributed something. Even the cooks and maintenance workers helped by keeping the technical teams fed and supplied. The Defiant felt like a family, working together toward a common goal. On the 4th day of modifications, they had their first major test. Amy powered up one of the modified hull cleaners and tried to generate a simple frequency pattern. The sound that came from the ship's hull was unlike anything they had heard before. It was deep and resonant, like the voice of some enormous creature. Frequency is stable, Dr. Park reported from her instruments. Wave pattern matches the architect's specifications. Hull integrity is holding, Amy added. No stress fractures or overheating. Jake felt a moment of hope, but it was short-lived. The test lasted only 30 seconds before the system overloaded and shut down automatically. The power draw is too high, Amy said, checking her readings. We're pulling more energy than the ship can provide. Jake called a meeting of the senior staff to discuss the problem. They gathered in the mess hall looking tired but determined. We need more power, Amy said simply. But we can't get it without shutting down other systems. What kind of systems? Jake asked. Life support, artificial gravity, weapons, shields? Take your pick. Dr. Park had been thinking about the problem. What if we don't run all the frequency generators at once? The architect data shows they sometimes used partial patterns for specific situations. That could work for testing, Amy said. But in real combat, we'd need the full pattern to guarantee shield collapse. Then we designed the ship for combat, Chief Brooks said. Everyone turned to look at him. We shut down everything we don't absolutely need. Reduce life support to minimum levels, turn off artificial gravity in non-essential areas, dim the lights, use every available watt for the weapon system. Jake considered the idea. It was risky. If something went wrong during combat, they would have no backup systems, but it might be their only chance. How long can we operate under those conditions? He asked Amy. Maybe an hour before the air gets too thin? Less if we're working hard? An hour should be enough for a space battle, Jake said. Do it. The modifications continued. Amy's team rerouted power cables throughout the ship, connecting every available energy source to the harmonic weapon system. Dr. Park finished programming the frequency patterns into the ship's computers. Tony Rodriguez set up the control interfaces. That would let them operate the weapons from the bridge. On the 7th day, they were ready for a full test. The crew gathered on the bridge as Amy powered up all the modified systems. The lights dimmed as enormous amounts of energy flowed to the hull-mounted frequency generators. The sound that filled the ship was incredible. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, a deep harmonic tone that vibrated through the metal walls and into their bones. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. All frequencies stable, Dr. Park reported. Pattern integrity at 98%. Power levels holding steady, Amy said. We can maintain this for 57 minutes. Jake smiled for the first time in days. They had done it. The USS Defiant, a ship that nobody wanted, now carried the most advanced anti-shield weapon in human space. But their celebration was interrupted by an urgent beep from Kevin's sensor station. Captain, I'm detecting 3 ships entering the outer system, Kevin said, his voice tense. They're not showing up in our database. Jake felt his blood turn cold. Zephyrian? Yes, sir. 3 cruisers, moving fast and heading straight for us. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They had just finished building a weapon that could change the war. Now they were about to find out if it actually worked. All hands to battle stations, Jake ordered. This is not a drill. The USS Defiant prepared for the fight of its life. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks, but it felt like a lifetime to Amy Martinez. She spent most of the trip in the observation deck of the USS Liberty, watching the stars and trying to understand what she had become. The connection to human collective experience that had saved her life on Kelthera Prime was still there. But it was quieter now, like voices whispering in the back of her mind. Commander Sullivan found her there on the morning they entered Earth's solar system. The blue and white planet looked small and peaceful compared to the alien worlds they had seen. "How are you feeling?" he asked, sitting down beside her. Amy considered the question carefully. "Different," she said finally. "I can still feel all of them, every human who ever lived through pain and found strength in it. But it's not overwhelming anymore. It's more like having access to a library of experiences." "Do you regret what happened?" Sullivan asked. "No," Amy replied without hesitation. "The Zephyrians needed to be stopped. And if my death and transformation was the price for freeing millions of prisoners across the galaxy, then it was worth it." Dr. Roberts joined them at the observation window. She had been studying Amy's condition during the entire trip home, trying to understand the biological and psychological changes that had occurred. "Your cellular structure is still human," she reported. "But there are energy patterns I can't explain. It's like your consciousness exists on multiple levels simultaneously." "That sounds about right," Amy said with a small smile. "I'm still me, but I'm also connected to something much larger. The pain the Zephyrians put me through didn't just kill me. It opened doorways in my mind that I didn't know existed." As they approached Earth, communication channels filled with messages from every nation and organization on the planet. News of humanity's first contact with aliens had been eagerly awaited, but the reports coming from the USS Liberty were beyond anything anyone had imagined. "Earth Control to USS Liberty," came a voice from Mission Headquarters. "Please confirm your previous reports. Did you really encounter hostile aliens and destroy their entire military fleet?" Commander Sullivan took the communication. "Earth Control, this is Sullivan. Our reports are accurate. We encountered a species that had built their civilization on harvesting pain from other sentient beings. They captured and tortured Amy Martinez to death. What happened next changed everything. Please explain the nature of Lieutenant Martinez's current condition." Amy took the communicator from Sullivan. "Earth Control, this is Amy Martinez. I died during alien torture procedures 37 minutes ago from my perspective, though several weeks have passed in normal time. During those minutes of death, I experienced a connection to every human who had ever endured suffering and found strength in it. This connection allowed me to return to life with enhanced abilities." There was a long silence from Earth Control. Finally, the voice returned, sounding uncertain. "Lieutenant Martinez, medical scans show you are alive and healthy. How do you explain being dead for 37 minutes? "I can't explain it in scientific terms," Amy admitted, but I can tell you that human consciousness is more resilient than we ever imagined. When we're pushed beyond our breaking point, when we face the absolute worst that can happen to us, we don't just break, we transform. The USS Liberty entered Earth's atmosphere and landed at the same spaceport where their journey had begun. Crowds of people waited behind security barriers, along with scientists, government officials, and reporters from around the world. Everyone wanted to understand what had happened during humanity's first contact with alien life. Amy walked down the ship's ramp with her crewmates, and immediately she could feel the emotions of everyone present. Their curiosity, their fear, their hope for the future. But she also sensed something else. Every person in the crowd carried their own experiences of pain and growth, their own stories of overcoming hardship. Dr. Susan Clark, the head of the space program, approached them with a mixture of relief and concern on her face. "Welcome home," she said. "We have thousands of questions, but first we need to understand Lieutenant Martinez's condition. Our medical teams are standing by." "I'm fine," Amy assured her. "Better than fine, actually, but I understand your concern. What happened, to me, has never been documented in human history." Over the following days, Amy underwent every test that Earth's scientists could devise. They found that her body was indeed human, but her brain showed activity patterns unlike anything they had ever seen. She could perceive electromagnetic fields, sense the emotional states of people around her, and somehow access information that should have been impossible for her to know. "It's like she's connected to a network," Dr. Clark explained to a gathering of world leaders. "But instead of a technological network, it's a network of human experience and consciousness." Amy sat in the briefing room, surrounded by presidents, prime ministers, and military leaders from every major nation on Earth. They all wanted to know the same things. Could what happened to her be replicated? Could Earth defend itself if more hostile aliens appeared? What did this mean for humanity's future in the galaxy? "The abilities I gained aren't something that can be copied or taught," Amy explained, patiently. "They came from experiencing the absolute worst that could happen to a human being and somehow surviving it. I died and came back changed. That's not a process anyone should try to repeat." "But you did defeat an entire alien empire," pointed out General Martinez, the head of Earth's defense forces. "If other hostile species appear, we need to know how to protect ourselves." Amy stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. Below, millions of people were going about their daily lives, unaware of how close they had come to becoming victims of alien predators. "The Zephyrians made a critical error," she said. "They assumed that pain was just a resource to be harvested. They didn't understand that for humans, pain is a teacher. Every time we suffer and survive, we become stronger. Every time we face something that should break us and refuse to stay broken, we grow." She turned back to face the assembled leaders. "That's our real defense against any threat. Not weapons or technology, but our refusal to give up. Our ability to find strength in our darkest moments. Our determination to protect each other no matter what." President Johnson leaned forward in his chair. "What do you recommend we do now? How do we prepare for future contact with alien species?" "We do what humans have always done," Amy replied. "We help each other. We build communities. We refuse to let fear make us weak or cruel. The Zephyrians became monsters because they were afraid of experiencing pain themselves. We can't let that happen to us." Amy spent the next several months traveling around Earth, speaking to groups about what had happened and what it meant for humanity's future. She found that her story resonated with people from every culture and background. Everyone had experienced pain and loss. Everyone had moments when they had to choose between giving up and finding the strength to continue. "The connection I feel to human experience isn't just about the past," she explained to a gathering of students at a university. "It's about potential. Every one of you has the same strength inside you that saved me. You just have to be willing to find it when you need it most." As the months passed, reports began arriving from across the galaxy. The freed prisoners from Zephyrian facilities were returning to their home worlds, carrying stories of the human who had saved them. Many alien species wanted to establish contact with Earth, not as conquerors or exploiters, but as allies and friends. Amy stood once again at the observation deck of a starship, this time a new vessel designed specifically for diplomatic missions. Earth had decided to send ambassadors to the species that had been freed from Zephyrian captivity, and Amy would lead those missions. "Ready for another adventure?" Commander Sullivan asked, joining her at the window. Amy smiled, feeling the quiet presence of human strength and determination flowing through her consciousness. "As ready as anyone can be. We've shown the galaxy what humans are capable of when we're pushed to our limits. Now it's time to show them what we can do when we work together." As the ship launched toward the stars, Amy carried with her not just her own experiences, but the collective hope and resilience of her entire species. Humanity had faced its first test among the stars and emerged stronger than ever. Amy woke up to the sound of her door opening. The alien light outside was dim, suggesting it was still early morning on Kelthera Prime. High Speaker Zelthar stood in her doorway with two other Zephyrians she had not seen before. "Good morning, Amy Martinez," Zelthar said in his musical voice. "We are ready to begin the medical examination we discussed yesterday." Amy sat up quickly, her heart beating fast. "Where are the others?" "Commander Sullivan said we would discuss this as a team first. Your commander and the rest of your crew are still resting," Zelthar replied smoothly. "We thought it would be less stressful to examine you one at a time. You were chosen first because you speak our language best." Something cold settled in Amy's stomach. She reached for her communication device, but it was not where she had left it on the table beside her bed. "Looking for this?" One of the other aliens held up her communicator. "We removed all electronic devices for safety during the examination. Some of our medical equipment is sensitive to outside signals. Amy's training told her to be polite but firm. I would prefer to wait for my commander to be present. It's standard procedure for our people." Zelthar's black eyes seemed to grow darker. "I'm afraid that is not possible. Our medical schedule is very tight today. Please come with us now." The other two aliens moved closer to Amy's bed. They were bigger than Zelthar, and she could see what looked like weapons attached to their robes. Amy realized she had no choice but to go with them. "Can I at least tell my team where I'm going?" she asked. "They will be informed," Zelthar said. "Now please, we must not delay any longer." Amy got dressed quickly and followed the aliens out of her room. As they walked through the corridors, she tried to remember the path back, but the building seemed different than it had the day before. The walls had changed color, and passages that she remembered being straight now curved in impossible directions. They took her to a transportation device that looked like a glass bubble. Inside, Amy felt her stomach drop as they moved rapidly, downward, going deep underground. The journey took several minutes, and she realized they were traveling much farther than she had expected for a simple medical examination. When the transport stopped, they were in a massive underground complex. The walls were dark and covered with strange machines that hummed with energy. The air smelled sharp and metallic, making Amy's nose itch. This place felt nothing like the beautiful diplomatic center above. "Where are we?" Amy asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Our medical research facility," Zelthar replied. "The best place to conduct thorough examinations." They led her down long corridors lined with rooms behind transparent walls. Amy glanced into some of the rooms as they passed, and immediately wished she had not. Inside were creatures she did not recognize, lying on tables connected to bizarre machines. Some of them were moving weakly, and Amy could hear sounds that might have been screaming. Her training as a communications officer had included basic first aid, and what she saw did not look like any medical treatment she knew. The creatures looked like they were in terrible pain. "What's happening to them?" Amy asked, stopping in front of one of the rooms. "Research," said one of the larger aliens. "Just like what will happen to you." Amy's blood turned cold. She tried to run, but the aliens grabbed her arms easily. Their strength was much greater than a human's, and her struggles did nothing to slow them down. They brought her to a room that looked like the others. In the center was a metal table surrounded by machines that looked more like torture devices than medical equipment. Thin cables and tubes hung from the ceiling like mechanical snakes. "Please lie down on the table," Zelthar instructed. "No," Amy said firmly. "I want to go back to my team. This is not what we agreed to." "You have no choice in this matter," Zelthar replied, and his musical voice now sounded cold and cruel. "Your team believes you are undergoing a simple medical scan. They will not look for you for several hours." The other aliens forced Amy onto the table and secured her arms and legs with metal restraints that felt warm against her skin. She pulled against them, but they did not move at all. "What do you want from me?" Amy demanded. Zelthar moved to a control panel covered with symbols that hurt Amy's eyes to look at. "We want your pain," he said simply. "Human emotional and physical suffering contains a type of energy that is very valuable to us. It makes us stronger and helps us live longer." "That's impossible," Amy said, but even as she spoke, she remembered the creatures in the other rooms and their obvious agony. "Your species is new to us," Zelthar continued, "but our preliminary scans suggest human pain essence is particularly rich. We are very excited to begin the extraction process." Machines descended from the ceiling and attached themselves to Amy's head, arms, and chest. She could feel them connecting to her nervous system, sending strange sensations through her body. "The process works best when the subject remains conscious," Zelthar explained, adjusting controls on his panel. "Do not worry about permanent damage. We are very good at keeping subjects alive for extended periods." The first wave of pain hit Amy like lightning. Every nerve in her body suddenly felt like it was on fire. She screamed, but the sound seemed to be absorbed by the machines around her. "Excellent," Zelthar said, watching displays that showed Amy's vital signs. "Human pain resonance is indeed superior to other species we have tested." Hours passed, though Amy lost track of time as the torture continued. The aliens varied the type and intensity of pain they inflicted, always keeping her conscious and aware. They monitored her heart rate, brain activity, and other vital signs with scientific precision. Amy tried to focus on her training, on thoughts of Earth and her family, on anything that might help her endure. But the pain was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It went beyond physical hurt to something that attacked her mind and spirit. "Fascinating," Zelthar commented as he studied his instruments. "Human neural pathways create unique patterns. Under stress, this energy signature is remarkably complex." Amy's body began to shut down after 3 hours of continuous torture. Her heart struggled to beat, and her breathing became shallow and rapid. The machines detected her declining condition and sounded alarms. "Extract all remaining essence quickly," Zelthar ordered. "The subject is failing." The final surge of pain was so intense that Amy's consciousness simply could not handle it. Her heart stopped beating, and her brain activity flatlined on the monitors. "Time of death recorded," one of the assistants announced. "Total extraction time, 3 hours and 17 minutes. Zelthar looked satisfied as he studied the containers now filled with what he called Amy's pain essence. "Remarkable yield. Human subjects will be very profitable. Prepare the others for extraction immediately." They disconnected the machines from Amy's body and placed her on a transport cart. Her lifeless form was wheeled to what the aliens called the disposal area, where failed subjects were processed for organic recycling. Amy Martinez was dead, her body broken by alien torture devices designed to harvest human suffering. But as they placed her in the disposal unit, none of the Zephyrians noticed the faint energy patterns still flickering around her corpse. Death, for humans, was about to prove more complicated than the aliens understood.